Malcolm X, a Muslim warrior, a breaker of racial discrimination in America. Malcolm X, or El-Hajj Malik el-Shabazz, is one of the heroes of the black community in the United States. But his name is not as famous as Martin Luther King Jr. They both have made great contributions in fighting for the dignity and honor of their race. Perhaps, the background of his life and the way he worked made Malcolm X less well known, especially outside the United States. Malcolm had a dark background, and he was a Muslim. That is why he was less appreciated by the U.S. government. Various opinions have been expressed by people towards him. Some accused him of being an extremist, a white hater, a revolutionary who advocated violence must fight by violence. But many also considered him a hero and a fighter, who had succeeded in raising the self-esteem of black people. Malcolm X was originally named Malcolm Little. The last name, X, replaced the family name, Little, following the tradition of Elijah Muhammad's followers in the Nation of Islam movement. Elijah Muhammad considered the last name of black people to be given by their masters, when black people became their slaves. Their real last name is unknown, so just call them X. Malcolm X was born on May 19, 1925 in Omaha, Nebraska. His father, Earl Little, was a Baptist Christian minister, who led the UNIA, or Universal Negro Improvement Association. His father taught his followers not to be afraid to face white people, who he considered oppressors. Understandably, in those years, racial discrimination was still rampant in the United States. Because of his father's attitude, Malcolm's family experienced many sufferings. His house was burned down, and his father was killed by a racist white group, Ku Klux Klan. His mother, Louise Little, suffered from mental illness and was treated in a mental hospital. Little Malcolm then lived in poverty in the Harlem slums in New York. But he was a smart student. In junior high school he felt cornered because of the actions of teachers and white children who belittled him. Once he was asked by his English teacher, Mr. Ostrowski, about his ambitions. Malcolm answered that he wanted to be a lawyer. But his teacher sarcastically stated that his ambitions were unrealistic because he was a Negro. The teacher even suggested rudely that he should just become a carpenter. Because he was increasingly devastated and cornered, he moved to Boston in 1941, living with his sister, Ella. But he was already frustrated, and a dark life led him down until he was arrested by the police and sentenced to 10 years in prison on charges of theft in 1946. He was only 21 years old at that time. Prison turned out to change his life. He used his time in prison by studying books in the prison library. He devoured all the library books, which contained everything about black people. He studied autodidactically with extraordinary enthusiasm, with the encouragement of Bimbi, his cellmate. From these books, he learned about a black organization called the Nation of Islam, also known as Black Muslim, led by Elijah Muhammad. His sister, Reginald, who visited him in 1948, also encouraged Malcolm to embrace Islam by stopping smoking and eating pork. Reginald himself had become a member of Black Muslim, and he helped Malcolm become more interested in the teachings of Elijah Muhammad. However, even though it uses the name and terms of Islam, many teachings spread by the movement are contrary to the true teachings of Islam. One of its teachings, for example, says that white people are devils, and black people are of higher value than white people. The Nation of Islam also considers Elijah Muhammad to be a prophet. Malcolm was released on parole from prison in 1952 for good behavior, 4 years earlier than he would have served. He immediately contacted the person he admired, Elijah Muhammad, who was based in Chicago. He then became a fanatical member. Elijah then appointed him as the spokesman for this black nationalist organization. Since then, he changed his name to Malcolm X. In 1958, he married Betty X, and was blessed with 4 daughters, Adela, Kabila, Ilyasa, and Amelia. With his charisma and talent as an orator, Malcolm conveyed the views of black Muslims for 10 years, which were often said to be racist and separatist. The Nation of Islam did want a separate country for black people. He did not agree with the nonviolent methods taught by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. According to Malcolm's view, violence must be fought by violence. You should not turn one cheek after someone has slapped you. However, his extraordinary charisma made Elijah feel threatened. Elijah began to act less friendly again, and began to reduce his support. And in 1963, Malcolm told reporters that he was happy to hear that President John F. Kennedy had been killed. This statement did not please Elijah. Malcolm was suspended from the organization for 90 days. However, Malcolm not only accepted the punishment, he even declared his resignation from the Nation of Islam altogether. After leaving the Nation of Islam, Malcolm founded his own organization. This is where his awareness began to emerge. He pondered, what are the true teachings of Islam? Is what Elijah Muhammad, who considered himself a prophet, taught true? For that reason, he intended to learn Islam from its source. He wanted to go to Mecca to perform the Hajj pilgrimage, and at the same time find out about the true teachings of Islam. His sister, Ella, had already studied the true Islam from a mosque imam in Boston. She had even saved up little by little to be able to go on the Hajj. However, after hearing that Malcolm wanted to go on the Hajj, she gave her savings to her brother, who had become a famous figure. According to her, it was more important for Malcolm to go on the Hajj, and learn about the true Islam. Since his pilgrimage in 1964, Malcolm's racist views began to waver. He boarded a United Arab Airlines plane, which was carrying Hajj pilgrims from Europe to Mecca. He wrote in his autobiography, "There were so many Muslims from all over the place on the pilgrimage to Mecca. They were hugging and embracing each other. Their skin colors were different. The whole atmosphere was full of warmth and familiarity. I could see that there was no skin color problem here. It was as if I had just come out of a prison house." Malcolm X was honored as the personal guest of Prince Faisal bin Abdul Aziz of Saudi Arabia, and they discussed the differences between the teachings of Elijah Muhammad and the true teachings of Islam. And Malcolm felt like a human being here, and vowed to become a true Muslim. In this holy land, Malcolm changed his name to El-Hajj Malik el-Shabazz. The impression of the greatness of Islam was continuously depicted, along with his experience of performing the pilgrimage. The theme of the unity of humanity under one God aroused his soul's awareness. He also met white Muslims. And they did not oppress him, did not belittle him, and did not look down on him. But instead gave him help, sometimes even at the expense of their own interests. Far different from the non-Muslim white people in his country at that time. His view of white people also began to change. He also wrote a letter to his wife, Betty. Among other things, "In the land of Muhammad and in the land of Abraham, I have been blessed by Allah with a new awareness of the true Islam." After completing the Hajj, Malcolm alias El-Hajj Malik el-Shabazz continued his journey to meet Arab, African and Asian leaders, both Muslim and non-Muslim. This was repeated later. He has met with the President of Egypt, Gamal Abdel Nasser, the President of Nigeria Nnamdi Azikiwe, the President of Tanzania Julius Nyerere, the President of Guinea Ahmed Sékou Touré, and others. After returning from Mecca, Americans saw Malcolm was no longer racist. Malcolm expressed the hope of a true brotherhood between blacks and whites in America. Mecca also changed Malcolm's attitude regarding separatism and mixed marriages between races, which he had previously opposed. Mecca has proven to Malcolm the possibility of remaining in America while realizing a non-racial society, where blacks and whites live together peacefully. As for mixed marriages between blacks and whites, he no longer firmly opposed it, but left it to the person's choice. A new Malcolm X or El-Hajj el-Shabazz was certainly not liked by Elijah's organization, the Nation of Islam. They were angry and regretful. Until finally the day came, Sunday, February 21, 1965. At that time, El-Hajj Malik or Malcolm X was preparing to deliver a speech in the hall of a building in New York. He stood on the pulpit firmly, saying the Islamic greeting, Assalamu alaikum. Then there was a commotion and gunfire. Malik el-Shabazz collapsed covered in blood and died instantly. He met his God when his holy task began to bloom the results. 3 people were arrested, and then all 3 were sentenced to life imprisonment. They were Norman Butler, Thomas Johnson and Talmadge Hayer. One of the convicts admitted that he was paid to kill Malik el-Shabazz, but he did not want to reveal who had paid him. The greatest suspicion was indeed directed at Elijah Muhammad. Malcolm himself in the final moments of his life felt that he was being targeted by assassins. He was sure that Elijah would kill him. But Elijah himself denied that he wanted Malcolm's death. So, who was really behind this murder? Elijah? Or intelligence or state police? It's still mysterious until now, like the killings of President John F. Kennedy.